morning, Northeast Kansas.
Good morning and welcome to Northeast Kansas at Home. I'm your host, John Robison. Welcome to the very first episode. I'm really glad you're here, and I hope to see you here every weekday for many, many months and years to come. Northeast Kansas at Home is about all those places in between the big cities and all of the interesting people and businesses and events that happen in those places. I live here in Lawrence, but I travel extensively throughout Kansas, so hopefully I will see you in your town soon. A little bit about me before we get started. I am a former high school teacher, and I've been an actor for the past 15 years, running my own theaters and traveling throughout the region, doing murder mystery shows and running improv shows. I've lived here for the past 10 years, and I've got 2 teenage children that live here with me. There's a real lack of coverage of interesting things going on here in Lawrence and in surrounding areas. I'm here to help fill that void and show you the cool and interesting things that are happening all through our region. And hopefully you can help me do that. I'm just one person. So if you know someone who is really interesting that I should talk to, or if there's some event coming up, or if there is a place I should visit, send me a message. We'll go there and we'll put it on the show. Also, I want this to be your show. Send in the birthdays of yourself, your family, your children. Send me pictures of your pets. Send in anniversary. Send in good news. If it's happening, I want to know about it. If it is making you happy, I want to know about it. We'll put it on the show. I didn't want this to be just a regular show that you could just see anywhere. So we're going to do some themes. And today, the theme is World Rat Day. World Rat Day was founded back about 20 years ago by people who thought rats were getting a bad rap. People love keeping rats as pets, and they say that they're really great companions and they're lovable creatures to have around. I've never had a rat as a pet myself. Maybe you could send in a pet rat picture and we'll put it on the show. Tell us a story about how you love your rat. Anyway, today's guest is Drew Fox, and Drew is a behavioral psychologist who has worked extensively with rats and has some great stories about his workings. So let's go right to that interview. So it is World Rat Day today, and as our inaugural show, I had to have a rat expert on. So
Oh boy.
I found Drew Fox here. Drew is a behavioral psychologist who in the past worked with both rats and squirrels. I'm assuming they were not your coworkers.
It was pigeons, not squirrels.
Oh gosh, did I say squirrels? Got squirrels on the brain. Rats and pigeons.
Which are the squirrels of the sky.
That's right.
So, close enough.
So, not your coworkers, they were actual animals.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, tell us about that job.
So that job started when I got to grad school, and I realized that it was going to be a lot more fun to work with rats instead of small children, which is what I had originally gone to grad school to do, which was school psychology. So I worked in a rat lab. There was a room full of 100 rats, basically, in their little cages, and so there were 2 parts of the job because I did both animal care stuff and actually like the experiment parts. So what a normal day would consist of for me was cleaning up after the rats, which is basically as gross a job as it sounds like.
It sounds like an enormous job with 100 rats.
Yeah. It was actually, and it was more than 100 at times. It's as gross a job as it sounds like. I mean, there's no way around it. The animals make a mess. Without getting into too many details. And the rat hair goes everywhere. So that was actually my first experience with wearing a mask.
I didn't even think about rat hair.
Yeah, no, you have to wear a mask to not breathe the rat hair in and stuff.
Oh God, you get a case of the rat lung, you're done for.
No, you're done with the rat lung. It floofs up everywhere. So that's horrifying. And then, I mean, but then you just get used to it, and you don't care anymore. Of course, you get used to it.
Well, it's the same with working with children.
Yeah, exactly. You get used to how freaking gross they are, and you just, it becomes a big joke. So that would be like the start of my day. So I'd go in and clean up after the rats and mop the floor and that kind of stuff. But then the science part of the job was so we ran a lot of behavioral experiments with the rats, which mostly consisted of retrieving them from their cages, putting them in an operant chamber, which is a fancy term for, you might have heard of a Skinner box. Mm-hmm. If you took Psychology 101, they probably told you about a Skinner box. It's a little cage that has a lever in it and some lights and a little slot for food to come down. So if the rat presses the lever, it gets some food. So you basically take the rat out, you put it in the thing, you close the little cabinet, and you hit a button on a computer, and it runs the program that, sets up what the stimuli do in the boxes and stuff. So which what has an infinite variety of things you can do.
What's an example of something that you were trying to learn from the rats?
Okay, so a couple things that we did were, one of my experiments was a gambling game, essentially, where the rats had to spin a wheel instead of, they didn't run on a wheel, they had a wheel that they would spin, which they were really good at. They could just spin the heck out of it, and they learned that pretty quickly. They spin the wheel, and then once they've spun it enough, 2 levers would come out, and if they hit one of the levers, they could get 1 piece of food every time, 1 little piece of food, which they go crazy for the 1 little piece of food. It's got sugar in it in their regular diet. So they're really excited. Yeah. They're really excited about the food pellet. Mm-hmm. But if they press the other lever, it was a gamble. And so they might get nothing for all their effort of spinning the wheel, or they might get 2 pellets. So they might get a double reward. And so what we did was change the probability of winning across the different sessions that they were in there for. So they do that for 20 minutes or a half hour. They just spin the wheel, and then they can choose what they want to do.
So I'm going to guess that...
Do rats gamble?
I'm going to guess that the rats gamble.
Yeah, the question is, will a rat gamble? Will a rat go for, say, a 25% chance of winning a double prize? Like a very clever rat. And that's exactly what they do. Okay. They're not very smart about it.
So you're trying to see at what point do they go for the sure thing?
Yeah. And you basically have to go down pretty low for them to flip to the sure thing. Even if it's 50-50, they'll prefer the 50-50 option for 2 pellets over 1 sure pellet, which who knows why, but you can do that experiment in any number of ways, and that's what you find. They call it preference for uncertainty. It's a whole phenomenon.
And I assume that says something, we can infer things about human psychology as well, then?
Well, I mean, that's the ultimate idea with doing these rat experiments. It implies something basic about, learning on a very basic fundamental level and how we react to, the most basic stimuli. And of course, as we know, humans aren't very good when it comes to gambling and probabilities and that kind of thing.
I don't know if we have any evidence for that, do we?
No, exactly. So it isn't terribly surprising that the rats would be not mathematically ideal gamblers, because it's more, with humans, it's more about the excitement of it than the math of it, unless you really, really know what you're doing and you're super disciplined, which the vast majority of gamblers are not, as we know.
So I'm guessing, how long did you work with the rats? How many years were you in Ratville?
I started in, I would have to think about it. It was at least 10 years. I started it was a really long time. I was in grad school for a long time. I did 8 years, I think, before I finished my PhD, and then I did 3 more years of postdoc. So I think 11 years is right.
So it can't all have been just smooth running the whole time.
No.
There have to have been disasters.
No, of course. I mean, yeah. So when I very first started in the lab, the professor, the PI, principal investigator there, Dr. Riley, he had students who he had already trained them. They were all ready to do all the actual handling the rat and start running the experiments and stuff. I came in kind of late, and I didn't really know what I was doing, but one day I was the only one there. And I hadn't really been trained in how to handle rats like in a very detailed manner. And it was like, well, here's this rat. This experiment ended. We got to get this rat out of the cage and back into its home cage. And I'd never really been trained in how to handle a rat. It isn't rocket science, but when you don't know what you're doing, it's not a good plan. And so I went to get that rat out, and they don't like new people. That's one thing you learn with you never know what a rat is going to do with a new person.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's always dicey training a new person to do rat handling. That was one of the least fun parts of the job, because eventually, as was one of the grad students, I had to teach the undergrads how to handle rats and stuff.
I wouldn't think you could get side-eye from a rat.
No, they do not. No,
Okay.
They absolutely do not. I don't know what it is. I tell people not to like move too fast or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like the smell, because they can smell. They obviously know the difference between one person and the next from smell or from subtle differences in how we move. I don't know what it is. But yeah, they don't like new people. So I had to get this rat out of the thing. It was freaking out immediately. So I'm like, okay, I know we have these special gloves that they can't bite through. So I'll go put one of those on. And I go and I grab the rat, and it just like, like it moved so fast I don't even know what happened. I got it into its cage, and then I was like, crap, my hand kind of hurts. And I take the glove off, and there's just blood pouring from my thumb, like right here. And it had just totally sunk its teeth into my hand. In the part of the glove that is pliable, it was just soft leather. The rest of it was this really tough material that's really hard to pierce through.
It knew right where to go for it.
It knew right where to bite. And I didn't know that was going to happen. So anyway, yeah. So that happened, and like an hour later, I'm like, this thing bit me, and like I started to pass out, and like my professor's like, okay, somebody's going to take you to the infirmary or whatever. And so yeah, I had to get a tetanus shot and all that stuff. So yeah, that was a bad day. That was my first week. Maybe third week, first time handling a rat. Basically, that's how it went.
You start to think, what have I done?
Yeah, no. I mean, and so I had that in the back of my mind forever when teaching undergrads how to handle rats. I was always like, just near a panic attack that one of them was going to get bitten, because I never wanted that to happen again. Of course it didn't, and then it did, because the rats don't like new people, and occasionally they conniption for no apparent reason. It will be a rat that you handled 1,000 times in a row without a problem, and then a new person goes to do it and they just freak out. Okay. So yeah, we had another person get bit completely through the thumb, like straight in the thumbnail, and like didn't have feeling in the tip of their thumb for like years afterward.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's the thing that happens.
But once they get to know you, then it's like
it's totally fine.
They purr and they rub against you.
Well, we don't rub on them too much. No, but you can. The basic thing you need to be able to do is pick up the rat from its cage, put it in the bucket to weigh it, pick it back up out of the bucket, take it to the thing, take it out. I mean, it's like pick it up, put it down, pick it up, put it down.
And
with
they
each
get
rat.
accustomed to that.
They get totally accustomed to that much. And you do when you first get new rats, you do a thing called gentling, where you handle them a lot. And you get undergrads to do that, and like they have fun because they get to play with the little. They're very cute when they're little. They get a little gnarlier when they're older. The fur gets coarser and yellower, and they get scarier looking. They don't look like cute little mice anymore. Baby rats look like big cute mice.
Okay.
They're very soft and furry, and they get a little bigger, and they're a lot less pleasant. They're like a hard ball of muscle that will kill you if they decide to. So I always, tried to teach, once we gentle them, you still don't really want to put one on your shoulder and play with it. That's not a good plan for anyone. So the pick up and put down, as long as they're tolerating that, then everything's fine.
When you think about doing, experiments with rats, you think about running mazes. Is that a thing that is done?
That is a thing that is done. We did, so that the whole point of the operant chamber was to make it so that you can keep measuring the rat without having to pick it up and put it back at the start of the maze again. Like that was why. So they first invented the most basic mazes first they made these crazy mazes, and they did a lot of studies on the crazy mazes. Then they were like, well, let's do this the simplest way possible and just give it one choice. So it goes to the end and it can turn left or it can turn right, and that's called a T-maze. They still use those because there is some perfectly good things you can do with those. Depends on what you're interested in. But B.F. Skinner, the whole point of the operant chamber was that when a rat does one trial in a T-maze, you still have to pick it up and put it back to the start if you want to measure the behavior again. And like, how labor intensive is that to have to pay a student to pick up the rat, put it back at the start, let it do its thing, take a measurement, whatever, over and over and over again, when instead you could measure a discrete behavior like pressing a lever. So that was the whole point of the operant chamber, is that you can put the rat in, and like, in a sense, like every lever press is like a trial, and you can just measure it over and over again, and you can automate the whole thing and like measure 30 minutes of behavior, or however long, hours if you want, without having to interact with the rat over and over and over again. So, but that's the long answer to a short question. Yes, they still use mazes, but there's better ways depending on what you want to measure. Yeah.
Would you go back and work with rats again?
Yeah, totally. And I've thought about it, and I still have colleagues who do the rat stuff, and like, if they needed a rat person, yeah, I mean, it would be no problem for me to jump back into. I don't want to be the guy handling the rats so much anymore. I mean, I have the PhD now. I can find people to do that part. But I mean, I still enjoy, the learning experiments that you can do. They're very controlled, and they're very, I don't know. It's just so much, as messy as it is, it's so much less messy than doing experiments with people. People are so complicated. And like, we try to do these studies where we're trying to get people to lower their A1C. Like, it's a diabetes indicator. So you have to exercise and have a better diet, and like, you can't control anything that people are doing. Like, you can come up with these interventions where it's like, you got to exercise and you got to eat better, and like, you just have no control over what people are doing.
And they also leave hair everywhere.
Yeah. Some people do. Yeah. Not people with alopecia.
Yes. That's, as we've recently learned, nothing to joke about.
But yeah, I would totally do rat stuff again. It's fun. It's its own thing. And the reason that, it was easy to switch to people is you're more directly involved in things that are directly relevant to human health, which, is a stretch when you're doing rat experiments. It's always a stretch. There are like several steps between what you're doing and anything that's related to human health, unless you're like maybe directly doing pharmaceutical research where you're sticking rats full of who knows what, which is even less fun.
This show only works if we have people helping to support it. There are a couple ways that you can help us do that. Number one, become a member. $4 a month, $24 for a 6-month period, and that's all it takes for you to help keep this show going. Or if you have a business, you can be an advertiser on this show. Send us a message and we'll show you how that works. You will not be sorry. Our advertisers, we treat them like royalty. Even better than royalty.
Since you are a rat expert, we're going to play a little game here, and that is called Name That Rodent. So I'm going to give you a popular rodent from pop culture.
Yeah, this was part of my training.
Oh, good.
We had to memorize all the popular rodents.
And you tell us what kind of rodent this
what
character
kind
is.
of rodent? Okay.
What kind of rodent? So, for example, Charlotte's Web, Templeton.
Templeton was a rat.
Templeton was a rat.
Yeah.
There you go. Yes, that's just how that works.
Okay.
The Chronicles of Narnia, Reepicheep.
Yep. I have heard of this. Let's go with mouse.
He was a mouse, yes. Stuart Little from Stuart Little.
Yeah, I think Stuart Little is a mouse.
He was a mouse, yes.
Okay.
Good. How about Roscuro from The Tale of Despero?
Yeah, I feel like I've seen movie posters for that. I feel like that one's also a mouse.
Oh, he was a rat.
Oh, that one's a rat, okay.
Yes, he may not have been yellow and gnarly.
Nope.
Mrs. Brisby from The Secret of Nim.
Oh, Mrs. Brisby. I've seen The Secret of Nim. Do I remember? They were rats, right? Rat.
They were mice.
Lord.
Yes, it's hard to tell sometimes with the... Okay, how about Ben from the movie and the song Ben? Or Willard.
Rat.
Rat, correct. How about the character Rat from The Fantastic Mr. Fox?
This feels like a trick question. Rat was a rat.
Rat was a rat, yes.
Yes.
It was going to be a trick question, but we flipped it all
Don't
around.
overthink it. Number one rule of trivia.
Speedy Gonzales from Looney Tunes.
Speeding was supposed to be a mouse, I think.
Mouse, correct.
Yeah.
Master Splinter from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Mutated rat.
Yes, correct. And last one, Lemmiwinks from South Park.
Lemmiwinks was a gerbil.
That's right, yes,
Yeah.
good job.
Yeah. We
Excellent.
won't explain why I remember that.
The man knows his rodents. Drew, thanks so much for joining us on the
Yay.
first episode of Northeast Kansas at Home.
All right. Thank you for having me.
And if you know somebody who is really interesting, has a lot of stories, has a really cool job, something like that, send me a message. We'll get them on the show too. It's the cute pet of the day. Oh my gosh. Take a look at Panzer. Panzer lives with his companion, Jimmy Ullmeyer, here in Lawrence, Kansas. Panzer loves cuddles and scratches. He's a good guard dog, barking at threats wherever they appear, whether they be cars, other dogs, or very sinister leaves. Thanks, Jimmy, for sending in Panzer's picture. You too can have your cute pet appear on NEK at Home. Just send us a picture and a little story about what they like to do. Tune back in tomorrow because you're not going to want to miss this. Everyone knows that May 4th is the Star Wars holiday. May the 4th be with you. And we'll get to that once May rolls around. April 5th, however, that is called First Contact Day. That is the National Star Trek Day. And we're going to have folks from our area talk to you about their experience with Star Trek conventions, and we'll have a little Star Trek trivia game for them. So come on back tomorrow. You're not going to want to miss it. Thank you so much for watching today's show. I really appreciate it. I would love it if you would like this particular post, if you would share this to somebody else that you think might be interested, and subscribe to the YouTube channel, like our Facebook page. The more people and the more traffic that we have on those pages, the better it's going to be for all of us. Thanks so much. I can't wait to get your suggestions and to see the pictures of your family and your pets and your events and all the cool stuff that's going on in your lives. I'll see you again tomorrow. Have a happy Monday, everyone.